Hi crafters, this is Raquel from Paints and Glitter and I'm here with ScrapbookPal today. I'm going to be working with the Lawn Cuts Pull and Slide Surprise dies from Fawn. These have been really popular and I'm going to be making a card with you today. If you'd like to, of course, because this is a kinetic card, you can group it together with any other Fawn dies and stamps that you may have. A newer release that's out already is this one here, and this is the Backyard Bird Feeder. It comes with its matching dies and also stencils. I thought it would be really cute to play around with that. And what I'm going to do is, of course, share with you today how you can make this card here. By the way, if you like to make bunches of them at once, a good stamp set you might want to get your hands on is this one here. This is the offset sayings. So you get a solid stamp here and then you get an outline version over here. So if you like to do any kind of heat embossing, this is a really fun stamp set to play with. Or if you just like to have a very light outline of a sentiment that's kind of delicate looking, this is awesome for that too. But I'm going to get started by cutting some papers and I'll be right back. I've gone ahead and cut out all of the pieces that you'll need to create this pull and slide card, and using the die that has the line that's horizontal in the center, you're going to be cutting out a piece that will look like this. I've gone ahead and used this pretty paper that I have, and then it has a top line that you'll end up folding as a valley fold. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment. The center line is actually going to be a mountain fold, and you'll be able to find it because the die will score it for you. The bottom line is also a valley fold, so don't forget that one. I'm using a paper creaser to burnish all of my lines. Okay, so you'll get a mechanism that looks like this. Hopefully you can see that. This piece here has the little tab on the top, so you'll cut it out with this die. To adorn that tab, you have some choices. So there's this little piece here that will be solid, but then one side has the stitching lines. The other one has a little arrow that will cut out. I've gone ahead and used some really pretty mirror card to cut that one out. That's actually going to adhere to that top tab. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that right now. I think it looks really pretty. So you just place it right behind the little tab and then fold it right over and hold on to that until it's dry. Okay, so that's as easy as that. So alternately, of course, you could use the other one and then stamp a pretty sentiment on there, or if you have a stamp that says pull, you could stamp that as well. Okay, now we have these pieces here. I've cut them out twice, and this is the longest die here, and it cuts out these little strips. What I'm going to do is actually layer one on top of the other because I want to double mine up. You don't have to, but I like a secure mechanism, and I think a little bit of height will not hurt. Once your little stems here, I'm going to call them, are prepared, they're going to adhere to the very back of this on the very edge. So you want to take one, place it on the outer edge here. You can kind of follow the stitch line on the die if you'd like to. Gives you a good placement there. And to be sure, you can definitely take the insert, place it there, and make sure that the other channel does not supersede the edge of that insert. It's the easiest way. Okay, just follow that top to bottom. Once you have your little channels adhered to the back there, you're going to flip this to the right side, and using the insert as your gauge here, you're going to make sure that it lines up all the way to the top, and you have your little insert in there, and this portion here, which you know is going to move up and down, but you're going to want to adhere it to that insert only with that small tab at the bottom. So just make sure that it's exactly where you want it on the top before you add any adhesive. It looks good there. I'm going to fold over that little tab at the bottom that we had folded and scored as a valley fold. And now I'm just going to fold that right down to make sure that it meets the bottom edge of that die cut that's inside. Once you've adhered this bottom portion, you can now take a piece of card or paper that is 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches, and you can actually adhere it onto the back here so that you can have a base to your mechanism. So just ensure that you only apply adhesive on the 2 channels. And of course you want to avoid the insert at all costs. Let's place it right in here. And you don't really need to add adhesive at the bottom. You can just go ahead and adhere one side and the other, applying gentle pressure. You don't need to squeeze too hard. I'm going to burnish mine. And you now have your card mechanism that you can use and decorate. You can use this solid piece here, and this will adhere to the very bottom, and I do suggest you use it. It's going to give it a nice finished look, but it's also going to give it a little bit of strength to that mechanism. Reinforcement is the word I should have used. At this point, once this is nice and dry, you can also place it on top of a card base. I'm going to be using it in this perspective, so I will be using a 4 1/4 by 5.5 top folding card. It has a base that's 300 GSM and white smooth card, and then this pretty teal color as a matting layer, making sure that I leave room for that tab. That gives me a nice little border also. I've gone ahead and used some intense black ink from Honeybee Stamps, and I've stamped onto the little rectangular piece that you can cut out using the die set, and I've gone ahead and colored in a little bird with some seed there and another one flying in the sky, and I also stamped the little flowers with the No Line coloring ink by the same brand and colored that in using pastel highlights from Nuvo. And I also used the Copic markers that you see here. These are BG10 for the sky. I used E53 and 31 for the sand and the little seeds there. I used N2 as a shadow for one little bird and BV02 for the shadows on the other little bird. The rest I just colored in with the little pencils. I'm going to stamp the sentiment that will go on the inside, and it's going to go on this little rectangle here. It says, "I see to tell you something." I love punny sentiments. I think they're so cute. I see to tell you something. I'm going to put the banner here. There we go. It'll look like the little bird is carrying the banner. So I'm going to place the hello on top of the little banner. Try to place it again exactly how I had it. And I might cut it again out of a different color and place it right on top, just because I'm seeing that there's not a whole lot of contrast there. So I might just do that and cut it out in yellow maybe. But that's going to go right on here. I'm going to cut this sentiment out one more time. I'm going to double up that sentiment and just shift it over a tiny little bit so that it looks like a drop shadow. And you may want to make sure you use tweezers to hold on to this as you apply that. And make it a whole lot easier, so that way you can definitely direct this paper. So pretty. If you want to, you can further use the stamps to create a scene on the inside with the sentiment of choice. So I've again cut the little rectangle and stamped your seed stational. Then I'm grabbing the branch here and I'm simply going to stamp a portion of this onto the card. Bring it upside down and off to the side here because I only want a little bit of that showing, and it's actually going to supersede the fold also. So just be careful when you're doing this, of course. I'm now going to use the die cut of the branch and cover that up. In fact, I'm going to use some low-tech tape there to just do it right above the leaf there. Just like that. Now remove this. And it'll look like the bird feeder is behind that leaf. Plan out the stamping of your other little critters if you're going to use them. I'm going to place mine here at the bottom. And of course now you can color this in and adhere your sentiment right in the center if you like. I've gone ahead and colored these little images using the Nouveau pencils and the markers that I'll have listed on the blog, by the way, so if you need to refer to any of the colors, you can do so. And this is just super simple and easy. You can add the stamps wherever you think is clever. This is the fun part of this, of course. And I'm just going to use E31 here to color in this little mound of seeds. As you can see, the stamps are so tiny that it makes it a whole lot easier to color them in. You really don't need a whole lot of color either, just as long as you enjoy what you're seeing. You can extend the colors if you would like to. I'm using E31, E35, and E53 to go ahead and just extend the look of this on the bottom here, and you do it whichever way you find to be correct. Just adding a little bit of shadow here and there. And this is not any special type of paper, it's just nice heavyweight paper, but of course you can blend these colors out and the alcohol will evaporate and give you a smoother look. I like to do a little bit of feathering here and there whenever possible. And then if you want to frame out your sentiment, this is BG10. It's just a very, very light blue. This is what I did on the front. Just adding a tiny little bit of shadow to the edge of this die cut, leaving the perimeter white. But it's up to you if you want to color the background, or you can leave it white as I'm doing here. And that is it. That completes our card. It's so cute. I like the little surprise of coloring on the inside. I don't typically do that on a card, so that was fun. But I'm going to really quickly give you a rundown. The numbers of markers that I used here were BG10. That's the lightest blue. For the seeds, I used E31, E35, and E53. For the birds, I used N2, N4, and BV02. For the branches, I used N2 and N4. And then for the rest of the coloring, I used the pastel highlights from Nouveau. This was fun to craft with. This is a really darling little presentation. Of course, you could even put a little gift card back here if you wanted to. But this is the result. You can, of course, use the colors that appeal to you. Lawn Fawn has a lot of this teal in the packaging, so I thought that would be cute. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to stop by the blog post. I'll also have a sample there, and you'll get to see the photos of the process. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Don't forget also to subscribe to ScrapbookPal.com. Be inspired and be blessed.